My name is Max, and today we're going to talk about the top quality shared storage for VMware vSphere. Let's start with testing our service. Please let me know if you have any trouble viewing or hearing me today just before we start the event so we can pinpoint any possible technical issues and conduct a webinar so that everyone can view it and hear it. Please drop your feedback about the quality to questions and answers panel. I'll highly appreciate that. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so far it looks that everyone is okay with our today's audio and video. There will be a live demonstration and a short presentation before the actual live demonstration. So as we start, I would like to talk about shared storage for VMware. Sorry, slight technical problems. So our agenda for today. We'll start with a brief introduction, and then we're going to have a closer look at the most common shared storage designs for vSphere environments. We'll discuss pros and cons of each approach to form a more or less full picture of the options available on the market. Then we'll see if a classic dual controller approach works for our high availability needs. And of course, we'll see StarWind iSCSI in action. After that, I'll gladly answer all your questions and let you go. So, I guess all of our attendees are familiar with the concept of shared storage for VMware. Either you've heard about it, or you're considering one for your company, or you've already implemented one or several of those. I don't know. The idea is quite basic. A centralized storage resource is a key to all the high availability and fault tolerance and other enterprise features vSphere offers for their customers. And there are 3 traditional approaches I'll talk about. We'll go from right to left here. So the first one is NAS. Network attached storage has been underused and underestimated for a while, but as a VM shared storage, nowadays it's getting really mature and sometimes even outperforms some other solutions. Or there are still some downsides which make people go for other solutions because they think they'll not get good performance, or there will be some problems with sharing it to more servers, making it really redundant, or something else. So it doesn't fit all environments, but it's still a good one. The virtual storage appliance approach, especially the one VMware is really pushing with their product, this one comes handy if you want to utilize local storage as shared storage. This is actually a great idea. It's a very green, saves you space, and saves power, managing costs. And there are really many implementations in the market, but it doesn't fit into all environments. So there are some bigger environments which just cannot tolerate this approach. They really need a dedicated storage. Sometimes it's a company policy. So there are some downsides as well. The SAN approach is, I guess, the oldest and the one which became the classic approach of shared storage. Either fiber channel or iSCSI, SANs are so far dominating when it comes to shared storage. Fiber channel is like a must in some organizations, and I don't blame them. It consistently delivers good performance, and it somehow, well, basically it's a traditional approach for shared storage in some organizations. So it's, I don't know, fiber channel is a separate religion, I would even say. And I don't blame them. But more and more people come to us saying that they really want to get rid of their fiber channel infrastructure and change it to iSCSI, since iSCSI is cheaper, really more flexible, and now it often outperforms fiber channel or works on the same speeds while having better ROI, and TCO is really lower than a fiber channel solution. So we took the idea further and tried to get rid of the concept that SAN is a proprietary box we usually purchase from Dell, EMC, IBM, HP, etc. We at StarWind make something everybody now calls software-defined storage. So what is it? The idea is to get a standard server, customize it with more disks and NICs, and use it as a SAN. This gives you a huge freedom in terms of technical specs for your server, and of course you can expand it and you can update it as you please. When it comes too slow for you, you can update it with new disks, faster network, and new features available as a software update. While with hardware SANs, upgrades and updates are a bit of a problem. If you want to expand, you have a certain limit to expand to. After that, you need to buy a new SAN. So there also comes a problem if you buy a new SAN and then you make another transition. There is some gap, and you need to think about how to move the data from the old SAN to the new SAN without any interruptions. But let's get down to HA component of this story. So forget about hardware SAN versus software SAN. It's not our today's topic. So we're talking about highly available storage for vSphere. And a quite widespread configuration is a hardware SAN with redundant controllers. So a redundant controller SAN is a really good thing. So it offers you a set of disks with 2 RAID controllers in one box, and it's easy to manage. It consumes less rack space, and it can allow high availability and certain level of fault tolerance. But let's look closer at what it can withstand. So we can surely withstand a networking failure, of course, if we have redundant networking in place as well. Then we can withstand a power supply failure, a thing which happens quite often. And of course, we can withstand a controller failure. Otherwise, there is no use for redundant controller. But if we have a look at the red and orange bullets, we see that if a motherboard fails, or if the disk set fails, or let's say you ran like RAID 5 and more than one disk failed, so it's not just a degraded state, it's a total disaster. So you still have your second controller, you're good with the second controller, but your disks are already gone. There is nothing you can do, you can only restore from backup. So this produces certain amount of downtime, and it varies depending on when was the most recent backup, or if you have any backup at all. Well, with a fully redundant SAN approach StarWind offers, you can withstand nearly any failure. If you run 2 RAID 10s, you can withstand really lots of disks can be taken out from the servers before the solution actually fails. And it can withstand nearly anything. Controller failures, motherboard failures, anything. So this is, for me, it's really an approach which should be in place. And last year on VMworld in San Francisco, a guy came to our booth and asked, like, do you guys do something like redundant controllers? I said, no, like we go with redundant SANs. And he said, yeah, I really like the idea, because once in my life I saw a redundant controller SAN from a very famous brand failed, and I guess this was the only time I want to see it. I don't want to see it any time in my life again. So if you guys do fully redundant hardware, that's really the way to go. And I really share his opinion, because you can make it somehow redundant, but semi-redundancy is not something you would like to have in a production environment. It's either a single SAN with a backup, or if you really need HA, then you need a fully redundant hardware. There is no compromise in this area, since your business data is at stake. And you can also have your high availability two-way or three-way. StarWind now also offers a 3-node highly available cluster. So you can build a 3-node cluster from any industry standard SAN, and a big pro is that you can use RAID 0 in this configuration. Yeah, you've heard me right, it's a RAID 0, it's not a 10, not a 5. You can just use a 0 since your data is triplicated. So just according to probability theory, running a RAID 0 on 3 machines is a little bit more reliable than running a RAID 10 on 2 machines. So there is not problems with that. If a single server fails, no problem. We still have 2 servers maintaining distributed write-back caching, and these 2 servers still provide access to your data. If you have a drive failure, you just replace the drive, StarWind resynchronizes the data, and you're all set. So there are 2 ways to go here. Either a 2-node high availability cluster for vSphere, or a 3-node high availability cluster for vSphere. The 3-node configurations are quite new to the market, since not everyone wants or requires triplicated data in his environment. However, in some cases where client already has hardware and he only needs to buy additional disks, 3-node HA is an option which can save you money with huge spaces. So if you see the graph on the right, you see that storage capacity for 3-way HA built on RAID 0 is quite cheaper than 2-way HA built on RAID 10. So at certain level you get better price per gigabyte. Okay, but let's end up talking and see how StarWind performs in a live environment. Just a second, let me switch to the StarWind Management Console. Okay, our today's server for the webinar will be StarWind 2 and StarWind 3. We'll be connecting those to a vSphere server and see how it performs with the virtual machine under some load. So first I'll quickly create a data store for our vSphere server. Let's see how easy and quick it is. So we select 2 servers which will participate in today's highly available cluster. Go next. Then we specify an image file which will represent our disk on the front end. So it's store01 and it will be 100 gigs. Going next, we'll make the same image file on the second server and go next. At this point we specify a synchronization and heartbeat channel. This is the dedicated channel which will be used to synchronize every single write between the servers. So we usually ask our clients to make it an isolated connection using either a separate switch or even being a crossover cable. and our SAN network will be used for heartbeat. So if our synchronization channel fails, we will use heartbeat to determine if the whole server failed or was it just a NIC failure and we really need to block our second SAN to prevent the split brain situations. That's also a very important thing in block level storage. Going next, we'll use write-back caching. I'll provision 256 megs. Usually we use the rule of thumb as 1 gigabyte of cache per terabyte of storage. Going next. I'll not synchronize virtual disks since we've just created them. Going next, next, and finish. Okay, we've got our device created, and if we look here, we can see all the properties and currently connected servers. So currently they're interconnected. Server 1 is connected to server 2, server 2 to server 3. So both channels show as green, and we can continue to connect our storage to vSphere. And just from curiosity, while I'm doing this, I'll be really glad if you provide me some feedback on what type of storage were you actually considering for your project in vSphere or other hypervisor environments. So what is your usual approach? What would you like to stick with? Okay, so we go to storage adapters. At storage adapters, I go to dynamic discovery. We have our 2 IP addresses already added to dynamic discovery. So what I need to do now, I just need to do a full rescan to connect our HA device. Okay, rescan finished. We have our HA device connected, so now we go to manage paths, quickly change multipathing to round robin, press change, and we're all set. At this point we can add a new data store and create a virtual machine on it. So as I see from our webinar attendees, most of the attendees are using iSCSI SANs, either from StarWind or from other brands, but mostly iSCSI. So today, no fiber channel charge here. Okay, DS01 will be our data store name. And a lot of people from our attendees just stated that they already use StarWind. So I guess these folks came in to see what's new with StarWind. And if you remind me to tell you what's new right after our live presentation, I'll give you some information on the upcoming beta of version 8. So you'll get the most interesting information. Okay, our data store is now created. Let's refresh. Okay, DS01. And we'll quickly create a virtual machine and see how it performs when we plug the cable from one server or just stop StarWind service on one of the servers. Going next, DS01, standard 2008 R2 machine connected to our LAN, 40 gigs, okay, and I'll just give it a little less RAM since I'm using vSphere on a micro server today. Something happened to our bigger vSphere server, so I use a backup option. Okay, we've got our virtual machine up and powered on. Okay. And we'll go to Windows Deployment Services and install 2008 R2. Well, the setup is downloading the necessary files to the virtual machine. If you have any technical questions in the meantime, I'll gladly answer those. Okay, and the most frequently asked question during our last webinars. Is StarWind able to utilize SSD as cache? Not yet. This is something which we're going to implement in version 8. So with version 8, we're going to implement our own proprietary file system. So it will be a log-structured file system which eliminates every random write and uses SSD or RAM as huge read cache. This configuration is now in closed beta, but I've already been granted to say that this solution outperforms Microsoft iSCSI target, and on TechEd in Texas, we're going to present this in our booth. Come take a look. If you're going to be there, StarWind is participating in the event. Okay, our installation is now loaded. A small question from one of our attendees. Is StarWind available for evaluation? Of course. Grab a 30-day trial at our website. The only thing you need is a corporate email. So usually our website is not really tolerant to Gmails, GMX, DE, etc. So if you have a company email, you're good to evaluate. If you don't have a company email, drop an email to sales@starwindsoftware.com and one of our sales folks will help you out. And for India, we have an official reseller is Bionic IT, so you can contact them directly. They provide technical trainings natively, and they can also help you to install and configure the product. Okay, we go here. Okay. R2 Enterprise. So some of the folks may be already familiar with this test for HA, but for the new folks, let me explain. The installation is a quite disk-sensitive procedure. So as soon as Windows finishes expanding the files, I'll try to restart one of the StarWind servers or just drop StarWind service on one of the servers to see how it performs under these circumstances. So just to show you how high availability works in production. Okay, expanding is now started, and we're also remoted in to our StarWind 2 machine. So if we go to the management console, this is the machine where the first HE target resides. And on this machine, let me go to services. And imitate a small failure. So right now, StarWind service is stopped on one machine, and let's see how StarWind handles this through the console. So if we do a few quick refreshes, we see that SW2 is out. StarWind 3 keeps the connection. It's marked as the only synchronized one. It is connected to VMware host and of course our virtual machine. Let me switch this one. The virtual machine continues installing the operating system. It doesn't know anything about the failure. So we go here to configuration, yes. If we have a closer look at storage adapters under paths, we just see one dead path. So something similar you would see if a Dell EqualLogic dual controller SAN. So if one controller fails, this will be something you see. So no difference. Here it just sees it as one device through two different paths. Now back to storage, DSO1 is still visible. Our virtual machine is still installing the operating system. And we go back to StarWind Management Console, Devices, Synchronization and Heartbeat channel appear as down. So let's quickly fix this. Okay. Start StarWind service and open the console. Now we connect back to the StarWind 2 server. HE1 is marked with a red exclamation mark and we just press refresh and we see a fast synchronization just started. So restore is automatic. You don't need to push anything. It just turns back on and starts resynchronizing. With version 6 we've added multi-network card support on our level, so we do not rely on Microsoft teaming or high-speed channels anymore. You can aggregate synchronization channels within StarWind. So this is quite flexible in terms of aggregating 4 to 5 gigabit connections or multiple 10 gigabit links. We also have folks which test us for some high performance computing and they aggregate to Mellanox 40 gigs for synchronization. And don't ask me what they run for storage. Okay, so we're now resynchronizing, and as soon as we resynchronize, StarWind will automatically reconnect to the vSphere server. In the meantime, we've got a small question from one of our attendees. The question is how to resize the device in StarWind. Let me quick answer it with a live demonstration of this feature. You go to the device. This is the one. Right here, as soon as we're synchronized, you can click this button, extend size of HA device, and increase it when you add new storage. Also here you can change the synchronization priority. You can make synchronization faster, or if your clients start complaining that synchronization takes up too much performance from the array, voila. Just drop it to faster client request processing and you're good. Finish. And here you can also reconfigure your servers. If you have a third server pending to be added to the HA cluster, you press Add Replica. Here you specify information about your third server, finish the wizard, and your third server is added on the fly. If you plan for upgrading your infrastructure and you have 2 new servers, you just get a trial license and you can seamlessly transition from old HA SAN to new HA SAN without any client interruptions. So this is a really handy thing. Okay, synchronization is now finished, and as you can see, our virtual machine didn't notice anything. It just continues installing the operating system. It doesn't care about any failures. Let's see if it has any clue about networking problems. Let's go to Control Panel, networking, adapter settings. Okay, which one is synchronization here? Let's see. 1020. 1020 is what we need. Let's disable it. Oops, our synchronization channel just failed. Let's see what happens with the virtual machine. I bet $1,000 that nothing should happen. Let's see what happens on the StarWind side. On the StarWind side, one node is marked as active and one node is turned off. Well, actually just blocked to prevent split brain. So this is what happens if we lose a synchronization channel. Right here we can also monitor the performance during our synchronizations and sync channel failures. So total bandwidth, total IOPS, everything is visible here. So let's go back to general and also fix our synchronization channel problems. And here, network connections, re-enable the synchronization port. Okay. I just saved $1,000. The virtual machine is still up and running. Okay. So that's it. That's what we call a top quality shared storage for VMware, a highly available, fully redundant iSCSI, which is flexible and provides you with all the enterprise features and is a key for corresponding enterprise features from vSphere. So now let's move on to our questions and answers session. Okay, I still remember that I promised to tell you about upcoming things with version 8. And I've already talked about it, but I still want to tell something more. So with version 8, we're planning to release our log structured file system. So this is something which you would actually normally see in NetApp, but it's a little bit different. We have some technical differences, and we also made it quite flexible to be used on SATA drives, on SAS drives, or on SSDs. You can use it however you like. Also, this system will further use SSD caching and SSD Tier 2 caching. So this is a solution which is really good for virtualized environments, since it eliminates one huge problem of any hypervisor, IO Blender. So no IO Blender equals consistent and good performance for your virtual machines. Okay, a question from our attendees. More information about multipathing in iSCSI StarWind failover. Well, could you please elaborate on the question? So in basic, StarWind does not switch paths on VMware side. It's VMware who decides that this path is down and I would like to switch to a working one. So if one StarWind server fails, VMware just changes the path according to its policy for working with storage. So we do not need to configure StarWind to work with every single vendor on the market. It is automatically tailored for any vendor, since multipathing driver always performs as recommended from the vendor. Okay, one more question. When is going version 8 to be released? That's a good one. We're promised to have version 8 by the end of June. However, I think there will be some delay in the release because so far our developers think about features to be added in version 8, and depending on two tiny features as additions to log structured file system, we may get StarWind 8 a little bit later or a little bit earlier. But anyway, we will have a public beta version available really soon, and you can subscribe to the beta testing program on our forum. Okay. What type of licensing model will be available in version 8, per processor or per machine? We decided not to change our licensing model, so we still license our product per terabytes and per server. So basically right now one high availability license covers 2 servers. In some cases, if a client bought it during a promo, he can get 3 server license, and he can make certain amount of highly available storage, usually 2, 6, 8, 12, 16 terabytes or unlimited, and he is also granted to get unlimited storage capacity for single server devices like image files, snapshot devices, etc., as well as tape drives and other peripherals we can connect to virtual machines using StarWind. Also, a really interesting question from our attendee. So what is comparison with FreeNAS and Windows Storage Server? So as far as I remember, FreeNAS still uses something like virtual IP configuration in their high availability approach. So there may be some differences. I haven't researched this area for a while, but I can certainly tell that compared to Windows Storage Server, StarWind offers true high availability instead of active-passive scenarios, and Windows Storage Server has some problems with VHDX, while StarWind is perfectly working with this format. Okay, another question from our attendees. Can I use different hard disk RPM on different StarWind HA nodes? Yes, you can, and this is called LEA configurations. Well, it's not actually LEA, it's asynchronous configuration, sorry, asymmetric one. And it requires you to configure asynchronous LAN access, so you read from the faster node to get better performance. But normally we recommend symmetric configurations for StarWind to get maximized performance. Okay, let's see if any other questions persist. Well, looks like all questions answered so far, but anyway, if you have any questions and you forgot to ask those, please send your request to sales@starwindsoftware.com or to support@starwindsoftware.com. We'll be really glad to help you out in your situation. Thank you very much. I hope today's event was interesting for you, and bye-bye.